Tenet comes in to the tent, and again, if you can imagine this very large tent, there's a couple hundred people in the tent. They are all sitting at terminals, computer terminals on, kind of fold-up tables, anything we had that we could build this kind of command center around. And the four agency officers are up against the back of the tent, and so that their computers are facing away, so nobody can kind of see their computers. And they have put a rope up to kind of cordon off the area they're sitting in. So George comes in, and of course he's talking to all the soldiers, and same sort of thing. He's, where are you from? Which football team? So as he's walking around, then he comes over to the agency officers, and of course they immediately kind of stand up, and George is chatting with them, and he says, "What's this?" And the agency officer says, "Well, sir, we just want to make sure none of the military guys kind of come past this, because we're concerned about the sensitivity of this intelligence and everything." When he looks at it, he grabs the rope, rips it down, throws it across the room, and says, "Don't ever do that again. You share whatever intelligence you need with these guys here. Their lives are on the line." And it immediately changed everything about how we engage with the agency.
What I admired most about George was his, first, his intuitiveness. I mean, he just had a great intuitive sense of what was going on. He was a guy who was going to make sure that we understood the details and what we needed to know. But his relentlessness and his dedication, his commitment, the long hours. I can't tell you how many phone calls I got from George Tenet at 3:00 in the morning to tell me something, because something had happened, sometimes bad, sometimes good. But George is one of the more committed people I've ever known.
He did frequent parish visits, talking to people or going to visit various sections. And the workforce loved that. He would show up unannounced. There would be no preparation. And he normally would be chewing on one of his cigars, an unlit cigar. And the stubs of those cigars, by the way, we would find in the various plant containers around the agency. So we would look for those. We saw those.
George is incredibly gregarious. He is unbelievably personable. I know people that disagree with some of the things he's said or done, but I would be hard-pressed to find anyone who does not like him. He's a likable guy. He's very aggressive in keeping close contacts. I can remember many times, I'd say almost always, when I'd be in a meeting with him on the 7th floor, it would be pretty intense stuff, counterterrorism or Iran or something like that. And you're all focused on this, and you come out and you go with him in the elevator, and you get off on one of the lower floors. You're walking down the corridor, and there'd be, some man or woman walk out of an office. He'll go, "Cheryl, how are you?" And he'd stop. He'd ask her, "How's your husband, Fred?" It's on and on. I mean, believe me, slack-jawed. I've heard of people who can do this, but his knowledge of his workforce was encyclopedic. And there's a reason for that, and the reason for that is because he loved him.
We had family members coming in for orientation programs. And so many would come up to George and to me and say, "This is the first time we've been in this building for 30 years. 30 years we've been committed to our country. 30 years we've been supporting our spouses. But this is the first time we feel part of it."
When George Tenet arrived as director in 1997, the agency was really, in terms of resources, and in some respects morale, was kind of at its nadir. Short on cash, short on skilled people, and dealing with a lot of problems in the world, the Balkans, India, Pakistan. We had, of course, begun to focus on bin Laden in the mid-90s.
George walked into a very significant threat from al-Qaeda at a time that he had to rebuild the agency. And that's something that people do not understand.
He saw his job as leading the CIA, which is America's premier intelligence service, to whoever serves as president. His ability to interact with these people was unusually good. I never heard him say anything political ever.
George has no pretensions to him. He doesn't believe in pomp and circumstance. He is a regular guy. And so he talked to CIA officers as peers, quite frankly, wanted them to feel comfortable in sharing everything with him. He didn't want to have any distance between the director's office and the counterterrorism rank and file at CIA headquarters as well as overseas. So George is a garrulous, is a free-speaking individual who sometimes would use salty language, but appropriately so.
When you talk about George as a leader, you didn't feel like he was telling you to do things. You felt like he was setting a hill and saying, let's go take that one. He wasn't an imperial director. He was invested in it, but he was good enough at his job to be able to take the advice and the work of his subordinates. And if it went well or if it went differently, he never said, well, my subordinates let me down. You know, if you look at the history, there aren't a single day that he blamed anyone.
He was determined, very, very determined, that CIA would identify and capture the perpetrators of 9/11. And that was a multi-year effort, but one by one, we identified the perpetrators, we found them, and they were taken off the battlefield. And in doing so, they were unable to mount additional attacks against the United States. And there certainly were additional attacks that they aspired to at the time of 9/11.
The reason I think when George says when he can't sleep at night, I almost doubt that. He didn't sleep because he wasn't allowed to sleep. But in terms of conscience, I don't worry about George Tenet because he's a man of deep faith. He's a man of clear conviction who spoke truth to power. I mean, no one can say about George Tenet, even when he was wrong, that he didn't speak truth to power, exactly what he thought. The signature characteristic of his, and I've been in so many meetings in the White House with him and with the NSC and otherwise, and with heads of services, is he just said exactly what he felt needed to be said, right or wrong, at a time when that was the defining characteristic of moving fast and moving honestly and with integrity.
What defines George Tenet more than anything else is his humanity. He touches people personally, whether it's the security officer at the front gate or presidents of prime ministers of other countries. He connects with people. He has an amazing sense of humor that he shares with everybody. It puts people at ease. You put those together and you have an incredible leader. You have a leader who people want to follow and are willing to follow, up a hill into fire if necessary. So he was a magnificent leader and manager. I think the best the CIA has ever had.
Laura and I are thrilled to join you in honoring George Tenet with the Donovan Award. 20 years ago, George held a consequential job at a consequential time. His leadership of the CIA helped keep America safe after 9/11, and not just protect, but advance American interests around the world. I'm proud that George played a critical role in my administration. I'm grateful for his good humor and great service. Laura joins me in sending congratulations to George and Stephanie, and our thanks and best wishes to the OSS Society.